welcome to the Generation Game. Nice to see you. To see you! There we are. And we've never...
Good old Bruce Forsyth there. Nice to see you indeed. It's Saturday evening, 1974. You're sitting on a shag pile carpet that's probably seen better days, wearing something made of nylon that might spontaneously combust if you went too near a naked flame. The whole family is gathered around the warm, flickering glow of the telly, waiting for Brucie to come on with the Generation Game. You're warm, you're happy, and then click. The screen dies. The room plunges into total darkness. It's not a blown fuse, and it's not a storm outside. It's just the 1970s, and it's yet another power cut. That collective groan of a British family suddenly left in the dark is practically the soundtrack of the decade. Britain in the dark days of the 1970s. How did we all survive? I remember we'd all be playing outside when suddenly the street lamps would go out, plunging the whole housing estate into total darkness. Great fun for kids. Not so when someone's trying to watch the Duchess of Duke Street. I was born in 1969, so I literally grew up in the 70s. One of my earliest memories is being in the back of a car and the woman driving talking to my mother in the passenger seat, we never had a car, remarked about petrol hitting 50p a gallon. 1974, I think. They talked like it was the end of Western civilization, but somehow we're still here. If you were a child in 1970s Britain, the modern health and safety law would tell you that you shouldn't have made it. We grew up in a world where the government turned the lights off 3 days a week to save us all from impending doom, where seatbelts were purely decorative and where our favourite sweets were essentially sugary shrapnel. Heck, it was 1983 in the UK before seatbelts were compulsory in the front. 1983.
Now, an egg hasn't got much in the way of brains, but you have. Wear a seatbelt. Clunk, click, every trip.
Welcome to yesterday's Britain Scrapbook. Today we aren't just looking back at the Raleigh Choppers and the Curly Wurlies, we're looking at how an entire generation survived Britain's most dangerous, glorious and, let's be honest, completely beige decade. We're diving into the lost world of the coin meter, the ice on the inside of the windows, and the resilience we built without even realising it. Let's start with the home comforts. To anyone looking at a magazine now, a 70s lounge looks quite cosy with all those browns and oranges, but the reality was more like a domestic war zone against the cold. Central heating was a luxury for the well-to-do. For the rest of us, the morning ritual wasn't checking a phone, it was scraping a thick layer of frost off the inside of your bedroom window. You'd wake up and see your own breath hanging in the air like a fog. You'd then have to sprint downstairs to the only room in the house that was actually habitable, usually thanks to a gas fire or a paraffin heater that smelled like a refinery accident. And then there was the tech. It wasn't smart, it was coin-operated survival. The electricity meter was a hungry beast living in the cupboard. It always seemed to run out at the worst possible moment, didn't it? You'd be right in the middle of a cliffhanger on Corrie and the lights would flicker and die. Then began the frantic scramble. Hands diving into kitchen drawers, feeling down the back of the sofa. Everyone screaming for a 10p bit. It was a lesson in economics and sheer panic that today's kids will never quite grasp. Even the telly itself was often a guest in your house. You didn't own it, you rented it, from the likes of Radio Rentals or Rumbelows. It had 3 channels, BBC One, BBC Two and ITV. That was it. No streaming, no pausing, no rewinding. If you missed it forever, or at least until the inevitable repeats. And you didn't have a remote control. If you wanted to change the channel, you had to physically get up and push a button. Or if you were the youngest child, you were the remote control. You sat by the set and did what you were told. It was a massive piece of furniture that cost a weekly fortune, and if you missed a payment, they'd be round to take it back. Tellies weren't the thickness of a slice of mother's pride back then. They were bulky enough for the cat to sleep on, with its fluffy tail flopping down just as Man U were on the attack. But while we were watching the box, the street was watching us. We didn't need CCTV back then. We had something far more terrifying. We had the net curtain twitcher. Every street had at least one. That neighbour whose curtains would move the second a car pulled up or a stray dog wandered past. It was a proper analogue surveillance system. You had zero privacy. If you misbehaved 3 streets away, your mum knew about it before you'd even turned the corner, because the network of twitching nets transmitted gossip faster than any fibre optic broadband. Neighbourhood watch, they called it. Neighbourhood nosy more like. Now let's talk about the diet. Honestly, it's a bit of a miracle we didn't all end up with scurvy. It was the era of the beige feast. We're talking about smash, that powdered potato you'd mix with boiling water, while those metal robots laughed at us on the adverts.
That is good.
And then what better than to curl up satisfied in front of your favourite comedy programme?
And after peeling, boil for 20 minutes. Mash.
For mash, get smash.
In those days, they just laughed at our mashed tatties. Nowadays, if you believe the hype, there will be humanoid robots doing all the jobs. Everything seemed to come in a tin. Spam, corned beef, even whole chickens suspended in a mysterious jelly. But the real culinary gauntlet was school dinners. You'd line up with your metal tray, waiting to see what the dinner ladies would dollop out. Lumpy mash, grey mince, and cabbage that had been boiled until it had completely given up on life. The tins of spam or corned beef were lethal. Remember that key thing you had to turn around the tin to open the thing, and the hazardous sharp edges? But there was a silver lining. The pink custard. Nobody quite knew what flavour it was supposed to be. Strawberry? Raspberry? Industrial chemicals? It didn't matter. It was hot, it was sweet, and it was the absolute highlight of the day. It was the sugar rush we needed to survive the playground. Which brings us to the most lethal part of the 70s, the toys. Health and safety simply hadn't been invented yet. We played with clackers, 2 heavy acrylic balls on a string that you'd bash together as hard as possible until they inevitably shattered and sent shards flying into your eyeballs. 70s kids rode Raleigh Choppers, bikes with a gear stick perfectly positioned to cause life-changing injuries if you slip, and a centre of gravity that wanted to flip you backwards the second you tried a wheelie. What did it used to say on the chopper seat? This bicycle is designed to carry 1 person only, or words to that effect. I had a tomahawk anyway. Too wee for a chopper back then, and when we weren't maiming ourselves with toys, our parents were smoking us like kippers. Smoking was absolutely everywhere. In the cinema, on the bus, even in the doctor's waiting room. In fact, he or she probably smoked as well. And the car, that was basically a gas chamber on wheels. You'd be piled into the back of a Ford Cortina, windows wound tight, while your mum and dad chain-smoked Benson and Hedges in the front. Smoking was cool back then. Packets were shiny and appealing, and the ads were definitely cool. Remember the Marlboro Man? Seat belts? Forget it. The VIP seat wasn't in the front, it was the parcel shelf. You'd lie right under the back window, baking in the sun, and rolling around every time Dad took a corner a bit too fast. It was completely car-racy by today's standards, but back then it felt like total freedom. And that's the key word, isn't it? Freedom. It's the great paradox of the 1970s. It was a decade of limits. Limited lecky, limited money, only 3 telly channels, but unlimited freedom for us kids. We had the streetlight curfew. You were kicked out after breakfast and told not to come back until the streetlights came on. You roamed the neighbourhood in packs, playing Kirby on the curbs, or building dens in places that were probably structurally unsound. Scaling factory roofs was our thing, shimmying along narrow ledges 100 feet above concrete certain death below, blindly ignoring the warning signs of fragile roofs, and advising you something called a duckboard or crawling ladder must be used. It's a miracle we survived. Though looking back at some of those factory roof escapades, I'm fairly certain I used up all 9 lives by the time I was 10. We were free-range children. We learned to navigate the world without Google Maps and learned social skills by trading football stickers or falling out over who got to be the top hat at Monopoly by candlelight. It was a weird mix of the Stone Age and the Space Age. Think about it. At the exact same time we were using outside toilets and boiling kettles just to wash our faces, the Concorde was flying supersonic overhead. That contrast is what defined the era. You had David Bowie looking like a visitor from another planet on Top of the Pops, singing Starman to a nation of people eating Angel Delight in rooms lit by candles because the miners were on strike. It was gritty, it was grey, and sometimes it was genuinely tough. The 3-day week wasn't a game, it was a country on its knees. But here is why we miss it. There's a gap between the reality and the memory. We don't miss the shivering or the lack of cash, we miss the connection. Because we had less, we had to share more. We shared the bathwater, we shared the one phone in the hallway, and we definitely shared the one TV screen. When the power went out, you didn't retreat into your own private digital bubble. You sat in the dark with your family and you actually talked. We survived the 1970s not in spite of the danger, but because of it. It taught us resilience. It taught us that if you want to watch the telly, you'd better have a shiny coin ready just in case. It taught us that if you fall off your chopper, you better get back on before the twitcher at number 42 sees you blubbing. So, were we the last generation to survive the wild? Maybe. The 70s were hard, yes. They smelled of cigarette smoke, damp wool and frying chips. But looking back, that resilience is the one thing we didn't leave behind. We're the survivors of the analogue world, and we've got the scars and the memories to prove it. I want to know what triggers those memories for you. Is it the smell of a paraffin heater, the taste of Spangles, or the sound of the test card girl staring into your soul? Let me know in the comments below. And if you survived a journey on the parcel shelf of a Ford Cortina, hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.